In the beginning, when you're first doing ribbon, I recommend that you count your stitches every row. Because there's our chances if you could create a yarn over accidentally with this. So I'm starting with a knit stitch, my yarn's in the back. I bring my yarn up in between the two needle tips and then I purl. And now I'm going to bring my yarn to the back between my two needle tips and knit. If you don't bring your yarn to the front through the two needle tips, between the two needle tips, if you bring it over your needle, you'll create a yarn over. So let me show you what happens. If I accidentally knit and I haven't brought my yarn back in between and I've put it over the top here, I create this stitch that looks like this. So if you come across a stitch, these ones lie very straight. If you find one that's kind of looking off, like it's diagonal a bit, if you find it diagonal, that's probably you've made a yarn over. And what you're gonna wanna do is, in this case, I've caught it really quickly, right? I can just, that's tinking, I'm going back into picking up that stitch again on my left-hand needle, and I can just fix it, right? If you come across to your work or you count at the end and you find some of those diagonal stitches and you knit across, I'm going to show you what to do next if you've accidentally created a yarn over. So that was to create a knit stitch. All right, so I'm creating an accidental yarn over on purpose so I can show you what to do on the way back. Bring your yarn to the front and purl, in between the needle tips to the back and knit, in between the needle tips to the front and purl, between to the back and knit, between to the front and purl, between to the back and knit. Now, because you're knitting this flat, when we come to the other side, we're going to be purling the purl stitches. So these are the ones that have the bumps. All the ones with the bumps are purl stitches. All the ones that don't have bumps, those are knit stitches. So we're going to be purling the purl stitches and knitting the knit stitches as we go along in the back. So on the right side, this will be the right side of my work, I started with a knit stitch at the beginning and ended with a knit stitch. On the back of my work, because I have an even a number of stitches, I'm going to start with the purl stitch and then knit in between the needles and to the back. Now, follow the pattern. I think the pattern has it written out exactly what you have to do for each row. So bring it to the front, in between the needles, bring it to the back. In between the needles, bring it to the front and purl, between the needles to the back and knit, between the needles to the front and purl. All right, I am coming up on my accidental yarn over. So now I've counted and I notice I have this, you see the hole that creates? The neat thing about doing, coming across that, if you encounter it quickly and you don't knit it in, if you get to it before you knit it in, you can just slide that off the needle and continue along. And it will just work itself, like work back in, the strand will just work back in, and you won't be able to see that you slid it off the needle. It doesn't create a great gap. If you knit it in, it'll create a gap, and then you're going to have to pull back your work. All right, I'm going to show you one more row of ribbing, and then hopefully that will get you set up for all the texture work on this cute little hat. So knit one, purl one, knit one, yarn forward and purl, yarn back and knit, yarn forward and purl. There's your ribbing. It'll show up much clearer after you've done a few rows like of that. And then it'll look a little messy in the first couple of rows probably. But then it should clear up and start to look like ribbing. And you'll be so happy when you get all your lovely textures in this hat, the ribbing at the bottom and then this offset rib. in the rest of the hat. Oh, so soft. All right, enjoy.